You've heard me mention it a time or two. I grew up in a very non-liturgical tradition. We didn't do the liturgical calendar at all. Lent was something you pulled out of the dryer. That's it.
That's nice. Depends on where you spell it.
Advent, I had never heard of in my life. I just didn't know these things. But Palm Sunday, I knew. Palm Sunday, for some reason, we always had palms. We always sang Hosanna songs. We always talked about it, this whole triumphal entry thing. Like, of course, it's a totally ordinary, natural thing. That's how I saw it. I thought it was just another ordinary day where Jesus happened to walk down a path, and of course ask for depending on which gospel you read, a colt or a donkey. I picture him maybe riding both, a little bit opposite. No. A colt or a donkey, and it just happened to be tied up to a tree. Maybe another magical, mysterical, is that a word? It is now. Hey, I had 10 minutes of sleep. I get to say whatever words I want. Some kind of crazy miracle that Jesus did, because he did miracles, you know. Yeah, sure, why wouldn't a colt be tied to a tree if Jesus said it was going to be? Presto, abracadabra, there it is. Just happened to me. Of course. And I always thought it was just kind of like this whim that Jesus was walking down the road, or riding his colt down the road, and all of a sudden people spontaneously thought, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great if we throw our coats down and put palm branches down and start yelling Hosanna? Wouldn't that be perfect? Just a spontaneous thing that happened. And in my mind, it all made sense. So of course, you know, okay, why not? Why not end up in the temple in Jerusalem, look around, and then go to Bethany? It all was just kind of a thing. And to me, in my thought process, we didn't celebrate it because the day in and of itself was anything particularly special. We celebrated it, I think, more because the Passion Week was about to begin, and oh boy, we did Easter. And this was the first day of the last week. We're gearing up for Easter. That's what it was to me. Cool. A story that really doesn't have a lot to do with my faith, or me, or who I am, or what I am. Okay. Some call it a parade, a Paschal parade. The Paschal is the Passover lamb, right? The Paschal parade, or the triumphal entry. Okay, cool. Wish I could have been there. The end. But as I read this story again and again, and as I look into the history of the way it went, it was no ordinary day. This day we now call Palm Sunday, was a day that began the Passover feast, the most treasured holiday of the Jewish faith. Passover is beginning. Passover, that's everything. That for the Jewish faith is like Easter and Christmas and maybe even St. Patrick's Day all rolled into one. It is the big of the biggie. Because it has everything to do with their history. A Passover, we celebrate that we are liberated from the Roman Empire. It's a celebration of their history, their lineage, and where it got free. It's a celebration of freedom, and B, it's a celebration of faith. Because on the Passover, they would all journey from all over the place to Jerusalem, to the temple, where they would buy their sacrifice, and they would bring it in, and they would get a clean slate. It was both of who they were, their identity, and it was who they were, their faith. It was huge. Not just an ordinary day. Now here's some of the things that were going on. We're going a little backwards, I think. one of the things that happened, let's talk about the government structure there. Rome, we talked about the Roman Empire, right? It ran the whole show. The Emperor of Rome was said to be, we're going to talk about faith first, the Son of God. It started back in the belief of Apollo, the god. He had a baby, and it was the Roman Emperor. And then from that point on, in the lineage of the Roman emperors, they were the Son of God. That's a term we've heard before, possibly. It was powerful for them. He was the God. He was it. And below the Roman Empire was the tetrarchs and the governors. And Pontius Pilate was the governor of 3 different areas. He was like the big wig in charge. And below him then was the Jewish church. And Herod was the head of that. And so they liked Herod, because Herod was like, I'll play your game. Shoot, I'm good at politics. You tell me what you need, I'll make it happen. So here's how it worked. People had to stop working, stop making money to travel to Jerusalem. They already were being taxed for every single dollar that they earned in the fields, raising their animals and raising their crop. And they got there, and they had to, oh, here's these cents. Okay, you need to buy 2 pigeons and a lamb. Let's throw a squirrel in for safety. That's just mine. I don't think there was a squirrel sacrifice. You have to buy this, this, and this. That's what you have to buy. Oh, and because you're buying it at the temple, it's going to be 3 times as expensive. That's just the way that works. Oh, and by the way, Herod is taxing it. Oh, and did I mention that Pontius Pilate is also taxing it after the tax of Herod? So that people would get there to do what was their most treasured thing about their faith, and they would be ripped off, marginalized, compromised, oppressed, and turned away, not even being able to be who they thought they were in the eyes of God. That all was going on. Not just an ordinary day. On top of that, this happened every year at Passover. There's like so many more people in Jerusalem. What a better time to have a military parade to show your might. Some things never change. And so Pontius Pilate, he lined up in the west. Big regalia. Think of all the metal and glowy, clicky, clacky you can think of. His pole with this whatever eagle head. Think about the army behind him. All these massive horses. And they're full on armor. And they are going to have a parade to celebrate the emperor of Rome. And really to say, we're still in charge. You celebrate your freedom all you want. Just keep in mind, you're not free. That was going on too. It was not just an ordinary day. And so when I think of Jesus happening upon this path, that colt, those coats, the palm branches, and the temple in Jerusalem, I can't believe it was just a thing that happened. You see Jesus lined up in the east. Completely opposite of Pontius Pilate. And he said, let's do this. He said, it is time. It's time now. I will no longer walk around, and I think he still healed, he still spoke to the people, but it was time for Jesus to speak truth to power. It was time for Jesus to say, enough is enough. And I will begin by making a mockery of that thing that you call power. I will have my own parade. You see, I don't think the cult just happened to be there. I think Jesus was working some things out. I think Jesus spoke to the owner of that cult and said, you know what? I'm going to do a thing. Some may call it in a couple thousand years a parade, but I'm going to call it a protest. I'm going to get my cardboard signs and Sharpies and I'm going to start writing it up. Something is going to happen because enough is enough. By the way, I need your colt. Can you have it tied here? I'll have someone come pick it up. I don't think people just happen to throw their coats and their palm branches down and yell Hosanna. That was all tradition from Judas Maccabees. A revolution that took place a couple hundred years prior of liberation, of calling truth to power, of saying enough is enough. They didn't just happen to do that. Jesus said, guess what? Wear your pink hats. Jesus said we're doing something because enough is enough. And religion is not supposed to marginalize. And religion is not supposed to oppress. And when it does, it's time to put an end to it. Wow, how powerful is that? Doesn't that make that a whole different story? And I think Jesus went down in his parade and said, let's do this, Pontius Pilate. I am not afraid of you. And I think he went directly into the temple and he said, let's do this, Herod. I'm not afraid of you either. I think he said, it's time to stand up because faith just doesn't happen. It's not happenstance. It's not just ordinary days. It's faith that turns ordinary days to extraordinary days. And it's faith that turns ordinary acts into extraordinary acts. And it's faith that turns ordinary people into extraordinary people. And I'm telling you this morning that we have a chance right here, right now. Now, Pontius Pilate may not be lining up on the west side of Folsom, but there are a lot of powers that seek to oppress, to downgrade, to harm, to hurt, to destroy. And we get to line up on the other side and say, let's do this. Because I am an ordinary person whose faith will make me extraordinary. I am doing an ordinary thing whose God will make it extraordinary. I will stand up for the marginalized. I will stand up and speak truth to power. I will wave my palm branches, not as a fan, but as a protest sign, saying, oh, what's that chant we say nowadays? I like it. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I don't care what you chant, but you know what? I'm going to tell you, we need to stand up in faith. We need to stand up with strength. And we need to let God make the ordinary in us extraordinary. Let's make every day, not just of this Passion Week and not just of this month, but of this year. Let's say, God, take my palm branches, take my coats, take my cloaks, take my colts, and do something extraordinary. Happy Palm Sunday to you. Let's